it moves. We are live.
Tell me. Okay. So welcome, audience. We have an esteemed panel of guests today to share with us about allyship for racial justice. So many of us want to be allies, but we don't know how or where to start. So our panelists and our special guest will share their insight and what they've learned about how to approach the opportunity of allyship. So when I'm asking the questions panel, some of them will be for the entire panel, meaning we'd love to hear from everyone, or they might be for anyone who feels moved to answer, or we might have some specific questions for you as you're all unique and you have different strengths and insights. All right, let's begin. So the first question is for the entire panel, meaning we'd like to hear from everyone, and I'll call on you. So you'll know when it's your turn, all right? So please tell us your name, why you are committed to working for racial justice, and your top 1 or 2 preferred social change roles. I'll start with myself. I'm Tracy Levesque. My why is about making the world a better place for my daughter and future generations. And I see myself as a guide and a weaver and a disruptor. I like them all. All right, can we start with you, Tammy? Can we start with you, Kathy?
Sure. I'm Kathy Osman. What was the question again?
Sorry.
Why I want to be an ally, or
why you're yes, why you're committed to this work.
Right. Well, I think the world we live in is a mess. And one of the things that's really wrong is that we don't all start out with a fair shake. And the longer I've lived, the more I realize that I got a better deal in life than a lot of people did. And I feel like I therefore have an obligation to work for greater equity in this world, and to use what I've been given to make it more fair.
Super. And did you identify a couple of the social roles that you're most leaning toward?
Well, mine are the same as yours, a guide and a weaver.
Nice.
Or 2 of my top ones. And
oh, I'm sorry.
I also identify with healer.
Sure. Heather, could you introduce yourself for us and tell us your why?
You're muted, Heather.
Oops.
There we go. All right. So I am Heather Matsumoto Hoekstra, and I am a guide, visionary, experimenter, storyteller. I want to be all of other things. But I suppose my why as to why I wanted to more deeply connect with the concept of allyship, and also my role in it, is because I work within the system of justice. I'm not in criminal justice, but I'm a lawyer, and I see different results given to different people in certain situations. And I mean, more than anything, I sort of want to help recreate our system of justice to consider the role of empathy and mitigating factors more than they do now, even though they are talked about in law school or whatnot. It's been eye-opening to sort of be exposed to the differences of people's lives and how those differences can force one to make a decision that I would have otherwise never been presented with given my privilege. So I want to see a justice system that more equitably applies the law to people with consideration of background.
I can relate to that. drive for justice. It can be really, really compelling. Tracy.
So I'm Tracy Mitchell, and I fall under, I can be a disruptor, caretaker, a weaver, a guide, a builder. I kind of, it depends on the time, the place, and the people. I think I can fall under any of them. And my why has multi aspects, but I hate injustice. I love justice for all. I think that we all have a place in this world, and that when we give each person the space for their place, the world will become an even better place. So taking away space from other people takes away my space and space from all of us to shine. So I think making a shared future gives all of us, makes us all brighter. So, and I love Alexis's love army. So with a love army, we can do anything. So.
And Tammy?
I am Tamara Johns, and I see myself in the weaver and healer roles the most. I also am used to being the wind behind somebody's wings as a secretarial role, so I think I could do that very well, just to be able to put somebody else's ideas together and just be there to do whatever they need to help. And I want the world to be a better place. I want the world to be an equitable place. I want the world to be a safe place for all of us. The color of our skin should not determine the benefits we have in life. We should all have the same opportunities and a shared future. And I think that we can all work together to make the world a better place. A lot of us have biases that we don't necessarily recognize, and this class has made me realize that there's a lot of things that we take for granted, and I've learned a lot. So,
Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, is our excellent panel. And we also have a very special guest, a subject matter expert and a leader. That, can you, Alexis, introduce yourself and share your why and as well?
Hello, I am Alexis Douglas of Ask Alexis Coaching and Consulting. And my why is that I feel called and compelled from a deeply spiritual place to help restore love to those who have been oppressed. And that comes in a multitude of ways, some through the skill building of connection, which for me puts me in the healer category as far as which social change role. But then there's also the disruptor. And I see myself as a disruptor, as a co-facilitator of the Actively Authentic Allyship course, because with that course, we're actively disrupting the narratives that allow for oppression to exist and reduce the number of anti-racists out there. And with within the communities who have been marginalized, there is a reclamation of self and a healing that we work through, and I help guide people through as far as it relates to them and their own personal transformations and healing from the effects of systemic oppression and understanding how that plays out in their individual and societal lived experiences.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. Well, let's get started. I know you have a lot of wisdom to share, all of you. This is also for the entire panel. What is one thing that our audience should understand about how to be a welcome and effective ally for racial justice? What should our audience understand about how to be welcomed and effective in the role of allyship? And could we start with you on that, Tracy?
Yes. What came to mind immediately was creating a safe space, and then suspending any judgment that we might hold, knowing that we have internal biases that we may not even be aware of, being able to suspend our judgment and creating a safe place to be able to allow people to talk.
That sounds like a really wise piece of advice. And Heather, what would you add to that? What additional things should our audience be aware of?
I think that you can, I started my sentence was I think, but I think you can overthink a lot of these things and issues and try to provide solutions to problems in ways that don't fully acknowledge the sort of underlying emotional and spiritual aspect of them, and the trauma as well. And so I think this process, in order to most engage effectively and authentically, is in order to let that brain go to the side and just sort of experience what you're experiencing, and then put words to that, the sense of feeling that you have while you're working towards the shared future. So it's really about trying, instead of hiding behind your mind, actually just getting in front of it and experiencing it from their body. I think that's really helpful.
I like that. I like that a lot. It was a very all-encompassing answer.
Tammy, what would you say our audience should know about being a welcome and effective ally?
That you don't have to have all the answers, and just be a supportive person. Be there for somebody. And if you don't understand what somebody else is going through, then listening and just being supportive is the number one thing.
Amazing, great. And Kathy?
I was going to say, you don't have to have all the answers too.
There you go.
I think the word authentic in the name of our training series is important. I think building on our own personal strengths and knowing ourselves better, and being real with our interactions is important. And I agree with Tammy about listening. Listening skills are more important, I think, than knowing what the right words are to say. Being sensitive to not just the words that people say, but the feelings that are behind them and the assumptions that are behind them. And being attuned to the whole person, or persons, if you're in a group, it is important. It's not just about being authentic yourself, but looking for the authenticity within the other people and what's real and important for them.
Wow. Alexis, you put that authenticity front and center.
Yes.
When you created this course.
Yes. So that authenticity that's the part that when we connect from our authentic places, that's the space for genuine connection to happen, person to person, human to human, and you don't have to be perfect or get everything right. When we connect from that authentic place, there is a lot of grace that can exist in this space between us when we're tackling difficult topics. If I can know that even if I have to brace myself to hear a harsh truth, if I understand that that is an authentic truth and that this brace is the brace that I have, and then we're moving forward, confidence and change can occur. Confidence that a shared future is possible can be built in that space where we're all being our true selves and not our authentic selves and not having anything to hide.
Seems like there's a real theme there that, authenticity is more important and trumps the that feeling of needing to be perfect or always know the right answer.
I should just throw this out there. Yes, and I'm gonna throw. People don't like perfect people. Like if you think about it, even in our heroes' times, there are people who would be like used as examples. When they existed, they were adversary. Like they had an adversarial relationship with most of the societies that they entered. Like people don't like perfect people. People like interesting people.
Nice.
And
Nicely said.
people also like vulnerability, right? Because it
Yeah.
allows them to sort of connect with a person to say, even though I view you as sort of up there and, sort of leading, the vulnerability and the humility are helpful to allow an audience to sort of connect with the person speaking. It's really very important.
Look at you with your inspiring ally knowledge. It's almost like you took a great course or something.
Right?
Perhaps
And
I did.
And our next question happens to be for Heather.
Oh.
So Heather, I understand that you have opportunities to recruit and mentor BIPOC in your field. And that's a goal for you. So this question is for you. How can we promote and mentor without falling into white saviorism? How do we maintain the agency of BIPOC and keep their voice front and center, even as we invest in them?
Right. So I think from the first get-go, you have to approach it as I'm not doing this to make myself feel better. I'm doing this for both my enrichment and for the enrichment of the person that you're wanting to mentor. Knowing that I have expertise and knowledge that I want to share, and that I want to empower a younger person to be able to take the steps that take steps in life that they wouldn't otherwise be able to take, and to have fun doing it. So, I mean, more than anything, it's about letting the person know that their role is going to be one of helping me, but also one of teaching me, and vice versa. And it's definitely going to be a partnership as opposed to a superior inferior. I mean, there are obviously power dynamics that can never change just because I would be a boss. But I think that it's important for them to know that you're really there to support them because you view their role in the future community as vital, and that they'll be playing a part in it, and that's what you want.
So I have a follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
So would you say that investing in people, investing in BIPOC with your expertise and in the manner that you want is a part of your personal commitment to a shared future?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, because I think that also because the shared future aspect of it is I see a problem where there's less representation of attorneys of color in my specific area of law, and that there's still a tremendous need within the BIPOC community for representation. And I think that, I do believe that you want to generally be represented by somebody that you're similar to or have at least similar known experiences. And so I just want to provide that, or want to help provide that to this community.
Great. Now this question is for anyone who would like to weigh in. Why is it important, do you think, to become knowledgeable about America's history with slavery and racial oppression in order to be an effective ally? What does that context and understanding provide? Anyone?
Well, I'd like to speak to that. One thing that I really learned more about, and I was beginning to learn more about, but I learned a lot in this course, was the effect of history on us today in a very real internal way, that that it's more in real today and not just a historical story, that we inherit the trauma through our generations, and that everybody is traumatized by the traumas of history. The perpetrators of the traumatic experiences and the people who were hurt are traumatized, and that affects us more than we know, and I'm very into studying about ancestry and family, and the more I know about family, the more what's going on in our lives today like makes more sense. And so it isn't irrelevant at all. It's very much a part of us today.
Did anyone have anything they wanted to add to that? Yeah.
Affirmation is what I want to add to that.
Me too. I love the word that we learned about the generational trauma and that several generations down, you're
Oh no.
and the talk we did about epigenetics, and that we carry our trauma, that the body will keep tabs on that. So, and I also loved the session on learning on how to heal trauma generations behind and generations forward when we do our work. So knowing the history helps extremely in doing our own work. So that's my addition.
Oh, I love that. I love that. That if I didn't know anything else about this course, I knew that that session had to be in there. So for it to be your addition is quite affirming.
Yes.
My daughter is really interested in the ancestors too. She's helping me set up my altar, and she's like, I really want to say hi to them and talk to them, and it's really sweet.
The babies are not far removed from their connection.
No, they're not.
They
They're
can be wise elders in this practice.
Definitely.
Nice, nice. All right, well, we have a question for Kathy. Kathy, many people from your, and I should say our generation, fought for civil rights in the 60s and have been active since then. What would you share with your generation about why it's important to engage in the movement now, and what's different about it now, if anything?
Well, I know, having been a part of the 60s movement, it's frustrating to me, and it was so easy to fall into the belief that we'd succeeded in some ways. And then it's depressing to find out that the problems are still here, and that they come back in cycles every time. There's like a fix for this, like voting rights, for example. We enact some legislation that protects voting rights for all people, and then it gets eaten away. And then we do it again, and then it gets eaten away. And it's just very, very disheartening. And it's easy to get to feel like it's hard, is it worth it? Is it ever going to work? And it's so I had to face that, I think, in some looking at the history, and realize that the work is not done just because I marched in the 60s and my mom contributed every month to the NAACP. And that it's not done till it's done. And that that there are many phases to the work that's needed. The marching isn't everything. And that it's so embedded that there's a lot of different kinds of work that need to be done, and therefore there's a lot of opportunities for a lot of different kinds of people to be doing different kinds of work. So, if somebody doesn't feel called to marching, which I don't anymore. I don't go stand on the street anymore. I don't feel safe about that anymore. Older. And but that some people still need to do that. That's important work to do. But there's also other things, and now I'm called to do some different parts of it. And this allyship is a new way for me to study, to do this kind of work. So I guess what I'd say to other people my age is, don't give up. Find a new way to be part of it. It's too important, because it hurts all of us. It's not just our people of color friends, that it hurts. It hurts our whole world. It hurts our country. It hurts us.
Wow. All right. Well, I have a question did you want to say anything, Alexis?
I am just very proud in this moment, and all, like, you're well equipped, and it is, feel accomplished is what I want to say. Feel like, I know we teach that you're not supposed to expect a cookie, but something was done, and it is positive, and it is toward the good of all of our whys. And there are times for celebration. And though this is not the end of the panel, so I'll be quiet with all this, what sounds like closing remarks. That is the experience I'm having in this moment.
Great. Well, we're off to a good start then. All right. This is for anyone who would like to answer. We can't be allies or co-conspirators for racial justice unless those we wish to support see us that way. So we can't declare ourselves allies. We have to be invited. We have to be recognized as allies. So how will you, and how would you advise the audience to foster trust and receptivity with those you wish to be an ally to? Anyone?
I will say that the recent history of the past year has allowed many opportunities to engage with and re-engage with individuals that you knew or had known in the past, and to spark conversations via social media, because that's what we do in isolation. But it's been really, I think it's just sort of reaching out to people, commenting on things, it's been really fulfilling, actually, to sort of look at how I approached my thoughts on race and how I wasn't racist, and sort of using, my experience growing up at a kind of half white, half black school as a sort of, excuse. Like, that was, well, clearly I went to school with these people, so, these folks, so that I'm not racist, since I understand their experience. No, I didn't know shit. Sorry. So I don't know how profane this panel is going to be, but I didn't know anything. And it was really nice to sort of just ask questions about their lives and see how they're doing, and check in when things, when bad things happen, and just show that you care about them as an individual, because they're your friend now. And it's, I don't know, that's how I've been showing up.
Tracy,
also,
can you repeat the question? You froze
You bet.
right at the end, quick, because I didn't get from here. It froze.
Okay. All right. The question is, well, first, we can't be allies or co-conspirators if the people we want to support don't see us that way, right? So we first have to bridge that gap that we are seen as allies. We can't just anoint ourselves. So how can we foster trust and receptivity with BIPOC friends, leaders, visionaries in order to be welcomed as an ally? Foster trust.
Sorry, were you going to continue, Heather? You were going to
Oh,
say.
there was one last thing I was going to say, which was sort of, I think there's sort of a realization I came to while we were working together these last few weeks. And it's just sort of like leading with the heart when you're talking to anybody, right? And then it just, humans can, even if it's over some sort of electronic medium, humans can sense when the interest is authentic or that the concern is real, and they can just hear it's something in the voice or whatnot. And so if you lead every conversation that you have with every person that you talk to, white, black, Latino, whatnot, it just allows there to be like a kind of connection that occurs. And it just, I've been trying to do that, I've been doing that. I've just been trying to be more human and more loving in every conversation I have, even if it's like with somebody who I should be opposed to. And it's just been very good to establish that connection with every single person, and just let them know that I'm a human being too, and that I see them that way. That's
A love warrior in the love army.
right. Private first class.
Did anyone have anything to add to that?
Just, I guess, admitting white privilege. Like before I took this class, I know as a lot of people do is like white privilege, I'm not privileged, and just learning what does it mean. Like if you get pulled over, you don't have to worry about getting shot, that type of thing. It's like scary realizations. So just to be the person that can say, yes, I was offended by these types of things, but now that I'm learning more and more about it, I can be more of an understanding person. If you don't understand something, or you're, I don't know, kind of naive about it, I guess, you can't really be an authentic person until you can understand these things and history. Do a lot of history, learn a lot of things, and then you can be more of an ally because you understand more of what people have gone through that you've maybe never even experienced before or learned about. So
Sorry.
Well, interestingly enough, our next question is for you, Tammy. Many people might feel they are not knowledgeable enough or don't have what it takes to be an ally for BIPOC and racial justice. So what advice would you give an aspiring ally that would boost their confidence? And you can't say taking this course because
That's good advice.
that's a given. Yeah. What other advice would you give them to help them feel more confident that they could do it?
well, just don't be afraid. I mean, like I said, learn about the past, learn about what's happening, and be vulnerable to be able to admit some of your own biases and investigate. Why do I feel this way? Why am I feeling defensive? Just to understand more, because you can't be the type of person that can be an ally until you understand the whole process, where you come from and where other people are coming from. I mean, I thought that I was not a racist person, and I thought that was enough. But I learned that you have to become an anti-racist. You can't just sit back and say, I'm not racist. You have to become an anti-racist. You have to do more. You have to be willing to put in the work and go forward with it. It's not enough just to sit around and act like everything is okay.
This is amazing.
Are you going to bust Are you gonna bust wide open there,
I'm
Alexis?
going to explode,
Burst.
and the light that is inside of me is going to squeeze out from every potential rip in the explosion.
Well, it's proof of concept that we white people need to do our inner work first, and it's better to do that together before we try to jump in and say, here I am to help you, because that's what will make us strong allies. So that's great. It's great, great, great. All right, this is for anyone who wants to answer, and some of you have mentioned it already. Activists and authors like Resma Menakem talk a great deal about the connection of trauma and racism, and I do agree with what Kathy said, that that's maybe something that wasn't recognized as much in the movements of the past, and we're becoming a little bit more informed and seeing the different aspects of what drives racism. But how does being trauma informed enhance your ability to be an ally? Anyone? Tracy, I know you have strong feelings about this.
Yes, I do. I think the more in touch someone is with their own triggers and their own feelings and their own sensations, can put words to them, can name them, and then you can start discovering the root of why you're having that reaction. And once I feel like you can learn to do that, there's always words that go back to trauma, and using trauma language helps us discuss systematic racism, because it is traumatic. And when you do this work, I highly recommend doing a lot of your own personal work prior to doing this work, or in conjunction with this work, because it is going to bring up some of your own personal trauma. So I think using feelings, that the wheel of feelings, the body, the images, getting in touch with that, whether you think you don't have them or you do, you do. So being able to put words to them is very important. So
Has that been an insight for anyone else on the panel?
Mhm.
I know it was for me.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone with anything to add?
Well, I think that one of the insights to this group is, for me, has been, just like we can't presume that any group of people characterized by their race or social background is a monolith. We just can't presume that the individuals that we encounter on a day-to-day basis have similar life experiences at all towards our own. And that was like made very plainly clear with Tracy's description of her childhood, and how unique it was, and how traumatizing it was, and that everybody's trauma is valid. Like, the thing I find really hard about society right now is that people view trauma as a kind of weakness, and it's not. You survived it, right? But you've had this trauma, you survived it. And so that's part of who you are now. And it's just recognizing that it's a strength that you can build upon. And also it makes you a more compassionate person to recognize the trauma in others.
yeah. And I think initially maybe the trauma feels like you're walking around with your skin inside out and you're exposed and all the nerve endings are exposed. And initially you're gonna react and have triggers, and that's how you're gonna walk around. But eventually you're gonna assimilate and you're gonna have language for it and you're gonna put words to it. And once you do that, your power, can start shining.
So allow me to contain a little bit of my pride that is just beaming out of every nook and cranny of me. But this isn't a follow-up question that anyone can answer. But how do you think that allyship has helped you in areas of your life outside of allyship? So many of you have alluded to it. I'd like you to just take a little bit of time and give some language to that. Like separate from allyship and a shared future, how has it benefited your own life?
Being able to be sensitive to others and understand the feelings behind their words.
Anyone else?
Active listening for me. I think I did a lot of passive listening, and I really learned, you know, to take the steps that we learned in the class and do some active listening and repeat back to them the keywords that we use to do some active listening. So just in story life, not just in regular, circumstances. So that translated.
Anyone else? Thank you, Tracy, for that grace and allowing me to interject with my own follow-up question.
Absolutely. I'm the moderator, but you are the special guest. So we did have a question for Tracy, and if this is a little redundant, you can share anything you want, but we all bring our own life experiences into the work of allyship and racial justice. And so how do you think your experience and skills will be a plus in allyship? And how should we all think about using our life experiences as a benefit to allyship?
Yeah. I think we all have our own unique stories. So we all come with our own stories. So I think, without being redundant, learning to put words to our stories, to give them a voice. They're not all the same, but I do believe that in telling our story, we can find some commonality. And I think as human beings, really, we all want the same thing: love, acceptance, equality, our kids to be taken care of, ourselves to be taken care of. So I think that coming in with our stories, putting words to it, doing our own work, and then being in a community, because I don't think we can do it alone, but I think finding a safe community to start and branching out. I think that would be a beginning.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I love that. I'm so proud of you all. Like, I'm so excited and so proud. And yeah, you are really, like, it is clear you've taken in this information and you understand the relationship to one's lived experience and systemic oppression, and how, while it is not your, you didn't do it, the world is a better place when you work to undo it.
Nice. So, oops, go ahead.
I was just going to say to actively pursue and to find people, like-minded people that are on the same journey. You might be doing different things, but if you're on the same journey, you're going to meet up, get your ideas, go out, and then, and then it just spreads. It's like a spider web, but a good one, not the creepy one, good.
Creepy one. So this is for the entire panel, and I know you weren't able to prepare for this, but hopefully you have something in mind as you conclude your course on active, authentic allyship. What have you imagined or planned as your first, or you could say next, action step to put your allyship in motion? And whoever's kind of ready, can start. Oh, there goes Kathy. She's ready.
Well, I already took one step.
Woohoo!
I met with a committee at my Quaker meeting about the issue of the one Black person in our community who is the caretaker of our building and with whom there are some frictions among some of our members. And it was a very, I met with these are the trustees, and the trustees are like responsible for the formal relationship with this caretaker, the contractual things and that sort of stuff. So I wanted to make sure that I'm a new member of the trustees, so I didn't know all the history of what exactly her duties are and when they were reviewed and if they'd been communicated clearly to everybody and all that kind of stuff. So I met with them and I got good information, good history. She's been there like 10 years. And some good insights, although it's a little frustrating because they said, you're not going to change people. They're still going to act nasty, like if they're nasty people, you know. But I'm not going to let that stop me. And most of them said, good for you. You know, this is something that's been wrong for a long time. So it doesn't hurt to try, you know. And I said to them, I'm not going to do this until I talk to her. I mean, I'm not going to start taking specific actions until I talk to her and say, do you welcome my doing this? And are you comfortable with me being an ally for you? So that's my next step. So I've been laying in bed trying to go to sleep thinking about that conversation and how that's going to go. And the joking part of me says, well, friend, I just took this class and do you mind if I try it out? I could almost say that to her. She's fun, but I'm not going to do that exactly. I mean, I think I will mention the class, but.
I took this cat class and I learned some new things.
Yep.
This is what I've learned. This is how I've noticed.
Yeah.
Would you like me to stand with you?
Yeah. So I that's my next step. And there was just in our last business meeting a microaggression that was quite painful, and that she reacted hurt. You could tell she was hurt. That I will probably talk to the person who said the hurtful things as the next thing I do after that. But I need to be, after I talk to the woman who's the caretaker, decide if that's the right next step or if too much time has gone by since then. And see, but I really want to first ask the caretaker where she is with that and what was going on with her and how what exactly triggered her anger, and because I'm not remembering everything. The person said that was the microaggressor, let's call it the microaggressor said, because they didn't pop out at me quite as much as they did for the caretaker. So anyway, that's my plan, and that's what I've taken the first step down that road. That felt brave.
Mhm.
And you did it anyway. And I love that. And I love that you took the step, right? And then there was like, from taking that step, you learned this information and this information, and now you're formulating your next step. But I like your commitment, and then your reflective, like your good job.
See, well, I had to pick, and I know myself, I had to pick an easy first step that would also make it public with some people, because that makes me have to do it. I can't back out now because I told people I'm going to do this. So it keeps me from chickening out.
Know thyself.
Yeah. So I'm on the road. We'll see what.
Okay. Great. Who else? Next up.
I I know my personality and I'm going to need some time to assimilate all the information. There was so much information that I'm going to take some time, go back through our manual and take a look a little bit more, and then learn to teach it, because I won't be able to explain something unless I tell somebody else about it. So I might practice on my daughter or something like that to actually teach the information out loud, or to be able to process it through verbal, language and stuff. And then I would love to join a book club, do a book club or something in that arena. So
I love that. I love that even within your desire to reinforce your knowledge, like there is a personal goal of reinforcing your knowledge, but you're still present to the fact that I have to make sure that it, like, teaching your daughter is an act of allyship as well. So like that is increasing allies, raising anti-racist children, and then reinforcing your knowledge at the same time in a safe and actionable way. Great job, Tracy.
fantastic.
Tammy or Heather?
So I am building on something that I did right after Ahmaud Arbery was killed. Well, right after the news of his killing came out, or his murder came out, and that was to write my local state senator about getting rid of citizen's arrest in California, because it's from the statute is from the 1800s, and sometimes laws need to be amended. And they were the communications director was receptive to it, but said to contact them in mid-November when the sessions, when they're starting to prepare for the next session starting in January. So that's what I'll be doing.
I love that, because you took something that is a tragedy and you found an area of opportunity with it for community benefit. And you took your social capital, your area of expertise, what you know how, and you brought it to the table and put it to actionable steps. Great job, Heather.
Thank you. We'll see if it works.
It will work. And if it doesn't work, we will reposition and continue the work.
Yeah. Well, I know that the police unions will not be happy about it.
Gang, gang.
Because I was talking to a DA about it, and he was telling me, he's like, you're going to get a lot of pushback on that one. I go, it's okay. This particular senator really clobbered them we passed a law a few years ago about the release of disciplinary records of policemen, and she was the sponsoring legislator. And so I was like, you're my legislator, you'll be into this. You're already, she's already war torn, and she's got her battle gear on for it. So
you research for a sympathetic ear, extra credit points.
Tammy?
I'm with Tracy to learn a little bit more. I don't feel like I'm ready to go out and act on it just yet, especially with COVID restrictions. But I think that my goal would be kind of maybe in the future working with law enforcement, because that's what I do anyway, somewhat, and just helping heal that. I don't know, but maybe working with legislators, I mean, to change some laws. I think that's really where the focus needs to be, working on the changing laws.
So just as a offer, we can talk about this later, but like we were telling you about that group, they're starting with Oakland County because we have contacts there, but they would definitely like to work with Genesee County, and you have contacts in Genesee County. So that could be an avenue where you could lend your social capital.
And I wanted to also draw, like, it is a beautiful thing that you're aware enough to say, I don't feel necessarily ready to go out and be active. I'm going to do more work on myself and be active with that. And that doesn't mean that if a conversation comes up in your sphere of influence, you can't be influential inside that conversation, because clearly you have retained and you got a lot from this course, and in those moments in your sphere of influence, you'll be working, you'll be active, and you'll be committed to allyship in those moments. But to go out and say, oh, I'm going to do, and you don't feel equipped, or like there is potential for harm to be done. So I'm proud of your self-awareness, and nowhere in what you said did you say, oh, I don't feel ready, I'm not going to still continue to do things. You said, I don't feel ready, I'm going to do the work to get myself ready. And that's something that BIPOC truly want from allies, is to make sure you do the work on yourself so that we don't have to do this work again.
Absolutely. But that's the main thing I'm worried about, is to just go out there and try to save the world and I don't even understand it yet. Like I can't do something that I'm not 100% aware of or comfortable with yet.
Now, you don't have to be 100% to begin doing the work, but I will say you get a lot closer in the process of continuing to do the work.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, well, to wrap up our panel, we're going to give our special guest and expert, Alexis, the floor. And Alexis, allyship is such a broad and complex opportunity that we've been studying for 10 weeks and could easily continue for the foreseeable future without ever exhausting the topic, right? Could you possibly boil it down a little bit for us to maybe like a top 5 things that allies can do? And I know you brought a slide, so I'm going to share that. So it is animated, so I'll try to take the cues.
So the first thing you can do is make a commitment and then honor your commitment to a shared and inclusive future. On this journey to a shared and inclusive future, we have to do things like take on a new identity, because we have to honor that we came from a divided past. So that identity is that I'm going to think about what it's like from a racialized perspective. I'm going to think about, is this law anti-racist? Because if it's not anti-racist, then it is what? Racist. So we want to make sure that we make and honor our commitment to a shared future. As often as you can, you want to create safe spaces where everyone can be their full and truest self, because as we learn through the connection of this course, and we even identified many times on this panel, that connection point of authenticity is where we begin to heal ourselves and heal the world. Remember, in this honor and commitment to a shared future, you have to really be committed to walk away from blame and shame, and then walk into revealing and healing. When we move from blame to shame to revealing and healing, we have opportunities to understand where a person is, if we're trying to educate them on allyship, and reveal where they need to go. But when we blame and shame them, they may not even want to walk that path with us. And that doesn't mean we don't get to be angry or have strong and intense feelings. And I'm not asking you to police all of your reactions, but to remember that in a shared and inclusive future, we have to begin to move away from blame and shame at some point if we want to get to the revealing and healing stage. Number 2. Being an ally means working on yourself, your own triggers, and your own trauma. No matter what, as long as we live in a racialized society, any unchecked triggers and traumas that play out in an unpleasant way with anyone who carries a marginalized identity that's visible it's going to be seen, it's going to have bias attached to it. It's going to be a racist act, even if it isn't. It's going to play out not in favor of the person who is of lower privilege. That's just how it works. So you got to be aware as an ally of your own triggers and traumas, and become trauma informed, so that you know how to bring compassion and understanding to the situation, as opposed to a reaction and punishment, or a reaction and defensiveness, or a reaction and fragility. There could be a lot of things, but if you're aware of your own stuff and you heal your own stuff, you're much more equipped to be an ally for a shared future. And also, doing your own work means pursuing the education along the way. I'm not saying go out and read every book or watch every podcast or anything like that, but you can, as Maisha Hill says, niche down your journey. So you can do every 90 days, a new book. Tracy mentioned in the panel earlier, starting a book club where you discuss topics and take on a new thing and reflect and really internalize the information. Number 3, you're gonna have to go through a phase of becoming. So we don't get to just say, oh, I want to be an ally for a community outside of myself, and then the next day we are that. You got to go through the phase of learning the subject. You got to go through the phase of getting it wrong, of being corrected, being grateful for the correction, managing yourself. That's just a part of this journey. And that is, no matter where you fall on the privilege spectrum, you got to go through that. So in order to be things that good allies do, they go through the phase of becoming a good ally. Number 4, you got to be willing to challenge your default perspectives. We all have implicit bias. We all have it. So we have to be willing to do the work of understanding where we get our beliefs and perspectives from, and checking to see if they are in alignment with a shared future or not in alignment with a shared future, and adjust accordingly. And if someone brings something to your attention that you may have done, you want to be aware and resist the urge to defend. Check your perspective first. Make sure you know why you believe what you believe before you begin to defend. This will help you in any relationship, not just the thing a good ally does. Also, when you are challenging your perspective, what does it feel like? Remembering that you feel your feelings in your body. What would it feel like if this was happening to you? Can you find understanding and connection rather than defending, even if you feel like you don't agree with the other perspective? A lot of times, this one here, I'm gonna ask you to challenge this particular perspective. If you get caught up in wanting to be right, remember you making the other person feel wrong. And when people feel wrong, they are way less likely to be open to understanding and connection and learning. Number 5, you gotta have a strong commitment to equity. As everyone on this panel has learned through this journey, a lot of our history and how we got here has created a racialized society that is wrought with inequity. In order to adjust that, we have to not only create equality, but we have to create equity where inequality has caused inequity. Get behind reparations. I want to be clear. A level playing field is just not enough to right the wrongs of history that are still affecting today. Now, you get to decide based on your own, and reparations, it can be a person-to-person thing. It can be voting for reparations from taxpayers. It could be giving of your service and talents to help someone else thrive, to help elevate and uplift BIPOC voices. When you think of it, instead of thinking of a reparation, kind of have the mindset of a restoration, like you're restoring, or you're correcting what was wrong. And that commitment is strong. You like, for a good ally has to have a strong one, because that sometimes means being charitable with yourself, not taking the credit, being financially generous, advocating for things that would make parts of society better, even if it causes you to have to pay a little bit more in taxes if you make over $400,000 a year. Just want to throw that out there. It is things, even in a way that you could have a strong commitment to equity, is if you were estate planning, because we have an estate attorney on our panel. If you are estate planning and you discover that your children are already financially set, you don't have to pass down that generational wealth. You can use that generational wealth to create equity. You can do that in the person-to-person way. You can do that in leaving your wealth to organizations that further and uplift and restore and repair systemic oppression. You can leave your wealth to causes that help restore other aspects of society that still play out in racialized way or disparate treatment. So but having that strong commitment to equity, you can be creative with that, with what you have. You don't have to just wait on someone from the outside to create equity. Equity is a daily decision, or something that can be done every day. And through the doing it every day, it's the snowball effect. We will have an equitable and just society, which is necessary for a shared and inclusive future. So you also got to be aware of that savior complex with that strong commitment to equity. Just want to remind you of that, because with that, what you're doing is you're righting wrongs of an unjust society, and you're correcting what was wrong in an unjust society, or the effect of injustice in society. But the person is alive. The person is, you're not saving them from their life. You're righting the wrongs of the effects of systemic oppression on their life. And those are the 5 things you need. Any questions from anyone?
What would be some organizations to donate to that are good with their money? I mean, you hear stuff about some charitable organizations that are quite top heavy and give to administration, and then your dollars don't necessarily go to the right people.
So there are grassroots organizations like the Power of Girlhood, which mentors Black and Brown girls who, are at-risk youth. There are the ACLU, who fights for the civil liberties. There are a lot of things, and you can, my request is that you can find individual startup nonprofits that help of helping them stay afloat so they could dedicate their time. So like if a nonprofit is new, a lot of times the founders have a job and they have this nonprofit, but they're called by a higher vision. So helping those startup nonprofits have capital to devote more time to their mission, have capital to purchase supplies for the activities that they may or may not be doing in the community. A lot of things, like I know I have done adult literacy incentivizing, and I needed supplies to make lotion and candles. But then we would sell those candles to incentivize adult students to stay in the literacy programs and see it through. But I didn't have on my own the money to buy all the supplies necessary to create the product. So there are a lot of organizations that are like that. You can find a cause that you feel passionate about, and you can even volunteer your time so you can see how they spend their money. You can bring that active spirit to the desire to contribute in that way as well.
You can also help Alexis continue her work.
Well, and there's that, yes.
I was going to recommend Ask Alexis.
We are planning
Start
different,
up.
As soon as I get off of unemployment, that's my plan.
we are planning different initiatives for BIPOC women to help kind of, the thing about systemic oppression as it plays out on the mindset of BIPOC women in particular with that extra intersectionality is that you don't, like some effects are compounded, so it's hard to see your villain as a victim of systemic oppression as well. And then, but those layers play out in how you have internalized that trauma to you. Because someone who has been hurt and traumatized by a system, they may not be intentionally harming you if they just didn't have what it took. Now, that doesn't take away from the effect of the harm, but you know that it's not like this person just hated you so bad. Anyway, I'm off into the weeds. Sorry.
Just suffice it to say that she is doing really good work with clients who can afford her and clients who can't afford her.
And I do track my pro bono hours if ever you want to see them. So like I'm not out, I'm not as organized as I probably should be, but I track the pro bono hours since I got this new client management system. So you could see that I'm continually doing them.
Oh, look, no homework. But of course, we've all, well, wait a minute. I should be wrapping up the panel saying, thank you so much, Alexis, for all of your insight and your gifts of understanding what makes good allies and what good allies do. And thank you to all the panel for all of the wisdom that you offer.
And I'm going to say this on this day, from the results of this class, I will call you ally.
We'll do this.